The question now arises, if sex is eliminated from human life, and if married couples live like sisters and brothers, will not their lives become dull and devoid of happiness? To answer this question, we may refer to Dr. Benedict's experiment on the effect of low-protein feeding on the sexual impulse, referred to in earlier lessons. We must first analyze the basic cause of sex desire. Is it due to natural instinct, as commonly supposed? According to Professor Jacques Loeb, there is no such thing as instinct or libido. Sexual behavior, as other forms of behavior, is a response to physical and chemical stimulation. In the case of sex, these stimuli originate in the blood, and consist of metabolic end products, acids, and toxins in the blood, especially the toxic end products of protein metabolism. It is the meat, fowl, fish, eggs and salt people eat, by the irritating effect of their end products of metabolism on the mucous membranes of the sex organs, that provoke sexual responses, first in the brain and later in action. Benedict showed that when the blood is kept free from such toxins by a low-protein diet, sex desire vanishes, and even becomes repulsive. Therefore, so long as people consume sexually stimulating foods and substances, including coffee, tea, cocoa, tobacco, and alcohol, sex desire will appear as natural and even compulsory and unavoidable, but when they live on a strict non-aphrodisiacal diet, low in protein and vegetarian, sex will gradually vanish from their lives. They will commence to look upon sex as the non-smoker looks upon smoking, as a harmful addiction, which is quite unnatural and repulsive, not to mention harmful to body and brain. Those who believe that the conquest of desire for sexual indulgence requires a Herculean effort of willpower will be surprised to find that after their diet becomes normalized, such desire will gradually disappear, and the state of living free from this constant craving will become firmly established. When it is, one will realize a state of freedom and happiness one never felt before. For the slave of sex craving never enjoys inner peace and true happiness, for his mind is continually obsessed by a desire which is never appeased. He experiences brief states of exuberance, followed by depression and remorse, due to the devitalizing effect of the loss of sex hormones, lecithin, etc., that sexual orgasms occasion. In the case of the female, all sexual contact, even without orgasm, calls into activity the mucous glands of the genital organs, and is therefore harmful. In the Oneida community, where a system of male continence was practiced, sexual union without emission by the male, the women were found to menstruate excessively, and while they had fewer uterine diseases than other women leading an ordinary sex life in marriage, they were not very happy. In fact, few married couples who base their lives on frequent sexual relationships are truly happy, and this is a common cause of divorce. In fact, sexual satisfaction is to a large extent a pathological process. The body is first surcharged with toxic products of protein metabolism, arising from the meat, fowl, fish, etc., previously consumed. The kidneys are overburdened and the excess of non-eliminated nitrogenous end products accumulate in the blood, which becomes acid and toxic. This toxic blood irritates the sexual centers and creates, by reflex action on the brain, a state of sex desire. This desire really represents an attempt by the body to unload the excess of albumin that has accumulated in the blood through the formation and discharge of seminal fluid. The sex glands are then activated to secretory action, and in order to simulate them to fullest activity, union with an individual of the opposite sex is desire. The physiological purpose of such union reaches its fullest expression and climax in the orgasm, when the excess of albumin is discharged, followed by depletion and enervation. Then the vicious circle is repeated with the further consumption of foods rich in protein, with resulting renewal of sex desire. The same release of excessive nitrogenous end products of metabolism may occur in the form of nocturnal emissions in men and leukorrhea or mucus discharges in women. Cut down the protein and sex desire also is reduced to the point of disappearance, provided one avoids salt, condiments, coffee, and other aphrodisiacs. As Dr. Benedict showed, it then becomes extremely easy to abstain from sex activity, just as, on a high-protein diet, sex appears to be almost a compulsion. The sexual orgasm may be compared to a boil full of pus, which seeks release, such release appearing to offer relief, a term of 10 used by victims of the sexual malady, in referring to the orgasm. The pus in the boil originated in protein foods previously consumed, in quantities beyond the power of the kidneys to handle. Since the body has no other way to get rid of these protein toxins except through other excretory channels, they turn into mucus, phlegm and pus, given off by the mucous membranes of the nose, in the form of a sinus condition, or the throat and lungs, in the form of common coughs and colds, laryngitis and lung and bronchial inflammations, or else through the skin in the form of boils. Just as the pus in the boil seeks release, so, through the genital glands and organs, another method of vicarious elimination is found, manifesting in sexual orgasms, nocturnal emissions, and leukorrhea. Usually, the discharge consists of mucus secretions and other constituents of seminal secretions, but when the blood becomes highly toxic, the discharges become chronic and purulent, and foul-smelling. Instead of mucus, yellowish or greenish pus is given off, as in gonorrhea. All these manifestations are equally pathological, and all arise from one cause, and toxic state of the blood produced by a high-protein diet, especially of animal proteins. We have thus described in our course 6 simple and natural method of male and female physiological regeneration of the endocrine glands, all of which are under the control of the sex glands, which are the master glands. The essence of this method is to conserve sex hormones on which youth, vigor, and health depend. Male and female sex hormones are lost with genital secretions, and the process of genital secretory activity is determined by the toxicity or purity of the blood. This, in turn, depends on the diet. In a previous folio, we described methods of intestinal regeneration, which is the first step. In another folio, we described methods of blood regeneration, which is the next step. In this course, we described methods of endocrine regeneration for men and women. The rest is up to the student, to put these doctrines into practice in his or her personal life, thereby attaining a higher degree of health and happiness than ever enjoyed by anyone who has not regenerated his or her intestinal tract, blood and endocrine glands.